I'm going to quote this here. I've got it pulled up. VSP is currently working diligently with the administration to effectuate the provisions of the new legislation. And I did not receive details when I asked what that means.
And Elizabeth, there may be more to come. There are those who say that by bringing back the background checks, the state is in violation of a court order.
Folks who were plaintiffs in the case, like Virginia Citizens Defense League, they've said that they plan to file a motion for contempt of court because the background checks have been resumed and reinstated, but it's unclear if contempt of court motion will do anything.
Elizabeth Beyer reports for cardinalnews.org. I'm Fred Eccles.
Cardinal News is a nonprofit online independent news organization covering Southwest and Southside Virginia.
It resonates with you. A story on Radio IQ that changed your perspective. A conversation that helped you understand the world better. And yes, the organizations that made it all possible. Corporate support isn't about shouting louder. It's about being present in the moments that matter to you. If your organization wants to make its mark where it counts, email us at corporatasupport@vt.edu.
Support for Radio IQ is provided by PR Sturgill Fine Jewelers, offering antique and estate jewelry repair, restoration, sales, and purchases since 1965. Locations in Radford and Wytheville. Online at prsturgills.com. And from the Greater Lynchburg Community Foundation, investing in the community for 50 years, providing grants to nonprofits and educational scholarships. More at lynchburgfoundation.org.
We have 64 degrees in the Wise area. Roanoke and Blacksburg 66, Danville 70, Charlottesville and Richmond have 66 degrees, partly sunny today. Pretty pleasant, highs around 80 for most in areas east. Mid-70s in the far southwest. Partly cloudy overnight, lows in the 50s. A couple of showers in the Shenandoah Valley overnight. Highs tomorrow in the low to mid-70s. It's 8:51.
The dollar store economy. Marketplace Morning Report is supported by Amazon Business. Amazon Business offers smart business buying, which uses AI-driven tools to perform time-consuming procurement tasks, helping to simplify complex processes and streamline workflows. Learn more at amazonbusiness.com. And by Schwab. At Schwab, investors get choices ranging from self-directed investing to full-service wealth management all in one place. Learn more at schwab.com. From Marketplace, I'm Nancy Marshall-Genzer in Washington. Dollar General reports earnings tomorrow. The company's stock already jumped last week after one of its rivals, the Dollar Tree, reported a great first quarter. Its comparable store sales were up 3.5%. This hints at a growing consumer demand for deals. So we asked Marketplace's Stephanie Hughes to check in on the dollar store ecosystem.
Dana Kenlin has been in the market for some travel-sized toiletry bottles. She could have got them at the drugstore that's 20 feet from her house. But instead, she went out of her way to drive to this Dollar Tree in East Baltimore. And you looked up the prices for both of these before you came in?
Actually, I did. I get paid Friday, so I'm trying to just limit the things that I buy until Friday.
Kenlin works as a security officer. She's also a single mom who keeps to a pretty strict budget. And she says shopping here helps.
I just feel relieved, I guess, more so like I'm not really overspending on certain things.
Another advantage to dollar stores, they're usually close to where people live, says Bloomberg intelligence analyst Jennifer Bartashis.
And so it's a very easy, quick place for people to stop and pick up a few essentials without having to drive a long distance.
Which is particularly attractive right now with elevated gas prices. Bartashis says dollar stores now offer a bigger assortment of items. Think craft supplies, tools, graduation balloons. And they're also pulling in higher income consumers looking for deals.
And so the question will be for these chains going forward, how do they hang on to those higher income households who have the capacity to spend more when they're in the stores?
And how do they get those big spenders to pop in more often? In Baltimore, I'm Stephanie Hughes for Marketplace.
Let's do the numbers. Markets are set to start June in positive territory as investors continue piling into tech stocks. The Dow, S&P, and NASDAQ futures are all up in the 0.2% range, with the Dow future up 128 points. The 10-year Treasury yield is down at 4.45%.
Later this week, we'll get the government's big hiring and unemployment reports, a key read on how the economy is holding up as oil markets remain unsettled. Speaking of oil, prices are up sharply this morning. International Brent crude is trading at $93 a barrel. West Texas Intermediate, the U.S. benchmark, is almost at $90 a barrel.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by Progressive Insurance. On the road and at home, customers can simplify their insurance needs and protect what's important by bundling home and auto with Progressive Insurance. Learn more about Progressive and bundling at progressive.com. And by GEP, advancing autonomous procurement and supply chains with the AI-native GEP Quantum Intelligence software platform. And by Intuit QuickBooks, integrating payroll, time tracking, human resources, and more in one connected system. More at quickbooks.com/workforce.
States are moving quickly to roll out their own AI laws. According to the National Conference of State Legislatures, a third of the states have enacted 127 laws regulating AI. The rapid growth of state AI laws comes as Congress debates whether federal rules should override state regulations. A new project called Mapping AI is trying to track the organizations, policymakers, and public figures shaping AI policy. Anushree Chaudhry is a doctoral candidate at the University of Cambridge. Sophia Wang is a research associate at Outliers Fund, a venture capital firm. They're the co-leads of Mapping AI, and they join us now. Welcome.
Morning.
Good morning, Nancy. Can you explain how this works, Sophia?
You can actually view around 1,800 different people and organizations that we believe are shaping the conversation about U.S. AI policy today. And so you can click around and actually be able to look at their regulatory stance, their AGI timeline, so when they expect artificial general intelligence to arrive, as well as their funding model and the types of people and organizations they're connected to. And so we're trying to track really the structure of the entire ecosystem.
Anushree, what are some of the insights that you've gleaned from this? I mean, where have you seen, tensions or disagreements over AI policy?
Yeah, definitely. I think often we try to view the left and right on an issue like AI as the right maybe wanting to accelerate the development of this technology and the left wanting to restrict it. But actually, there's a lot more issue-specific agreement on things like chip export controls. So a lot of people want to restrict exporting a lot of the hardware that goes into making these AI systems possible to China. Almost everyone across the aisle agrees that there should be some kind of liability for developers, companies that make a model that causes some kind of harm that could be for child safety, mental health, misinformation. And then some pretty big areas of disagreement, I think federal preemption of local regulation that's trying to pause or restrict AI development is pretty deeply bipartisan issue.
I'm curious about why you decided to launch this huge project in your spare time, I suppose.
I do think a lot of people our age and just in general are feeling a huge lack of agency in understanding how to navigate something that's changing so quickly. So this tool was actually our way of bringing agency into understanding the space as a starting point to see what points of leverage there are in how both we can contribute and maybe get the public more involved.
I can relate to that feeling of a lack of control. Sophia, what about you? What led you to do this in your spare time?
AI is this kind of like rapidly evolving technology that's starting to collide with almost every other technological domain. And I see this very actively in the space industry where I have formal background and also just in market trends. And our way of making an impact in this space is trying to create a transparency tool. We see this as kind of an opportunity for the public to get involved, even if they are not sort of in Silicon Valley themselves developing these models. They have really important feedback to give.
Anushree Chaudhry and Sophia Wang are the co-leads on Mapping AI, a project designed to track who's influencing artificial intelligence. Thank you both.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
In Washington, I'm Nancy Marshall-Genzer with the Marketplace Morning Report from APM, American Public Media.
Thank you for listening to Morning Edition on Radio IQ. We're in our summer membership drive and reaching out to you to support shows like Morning Edition and all the news and information here on Radio IQ. Make this your moment to give at radioiq.org. Listener support determines the level of service we're able to provide for you today and in the years ahead, and for a service that's no longer federally funded. Please make your gift now by clicking the donate button at radioiq.org.
You're listening to Radio IQ on WVTF Roanoke, WRIQ Charles City Richmond, WVTU Charlottesville, WVTW Charlottesville, WVTR Marion, WISE FM Wise, WQIQ Spotsylvania, WIUR Lexington, WEHC Emory, HD3 of WURV Richmond, and on 92.5 Richmond and 94.9 Fredericksburg. Radio IQ, a listener-supported community service of Virginia Tech, on your smart speaker and online at radioiq.org.
Welcome to NewsHour from the BBC World Service. I'm Regina Vaidyanathan. Israel expands its military campaign in Lebanon. Civilians are fleeing parts of Beirut after Prime Minister Netanyahu ordered strikes on Hezbollah. We'll hear from residents in the capital.
When it started, we thought that they won't do to Lebanon what they did to Gaza. But now, from what we see, it is happening. They did to 65 villages what they did to Gaza.
The prehistoric paintings, once dismissed as stripy rock, now confirmed as Northwest Europe's oldest cave art.
I was ecstatic, that's the word for it, because I was looking for it, never found it, and it wasn't until 2022 that it was found, and you can imagine talking about it and seeing it are two different things.
And we speak to the psychologist with incurable cancer who's climbed Mount Everest for the second time. A truly inspiring story. All of that coming up after the BBC News.
Good morning and welcome to our 9 o'clock a.m. City Council and formal session for Monday, June 1st, 2026. City Council meetings will be televised live and replayed on RVTV Channel 3 on Thursdays at 7 p.m. and Saturdays from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. and video streamed through YouTube Live at youtube.com/RoanokeVA. Council meetings are offered with closed captioning for the deaf or hard of hearing. This time I'll ask our Deputy City Clerk, Ms. Webb, to please call the roll.
Mr. Nash.
Here.
Mr. Vollison.
Here.
Ms. Powers.
Here.
Mr. Hagan.
Here.
Ms. Sanchez-Jones. Here. Vice Mayor McGuire. Here. And Mayor Cobb.
Here, and we are all present. Thank you. We have a number of items for action this morning. The first is a communication from my office requesting that Council convene in a closed meeting to discuss vacancies on certain authorities, boards, commissions, and committees appointed by the Council pursuant to Section 2.2-3711A1 Code of Virginia as amended. A list of these boards and commissions can be found in today's agenda. I need a motion and second, please.
So moved. Second.
Thank you, Council members Hagan and Vollison. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Nash.
Aye.
Mr. Vollison.
Aye.
Ms. Powers.
Aye.
Mr. Hagan.
Aye.
Ms. Sanchez-Jones.
Aye.
Vice Mayor McGuire.
Aye.
And Mayor Cobb.
Aye, and the motion is adopted. A communication from the City Attorney requesting that City Council convene in a closed meeting for the discussion of an amendment of a public contract involving the expenditure of public funds, negotiating new consideration and promises, and discussion of the terms or scope of such contract, where discussion in an open session would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the public body. This is pursuant to Section 2.2-3711A29, Code of Virginia as amended. I'll entertain a motion and second, please.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Councilmember Vollison and Vice Mayor McGuire. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Nash.
Aye.
Mr. Vollison.
Aye.
Ms. Powers.
Aye.
Mr. Hagan.
Aye.
Ms. Sanchez-Jones. Vice Mayor McGuire.
Aye.
And Mayor Cobb.
Aye, and the motion is adopted. A communication from the City Attorney requesting that City Council convene in a closed meeting to consult with legal counsel regarding a certain legal matter, requiring the provision of legal advice by the City Attorney concerning a prospective business or industry or the expansion of an existing business or industry where no previous announcement has been made of the business or industry's interest in locating or expanding its facilities in the northwest area of the City of Roanoke. Pursuant to Section 2.2-3711A5 Code of Virginia as amended. I'll entertain a motion second, please.
I move the motion.
Thank you, Council Members Powers and Sanchez Jones. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Nash.
Aye.
Mr. Volleson.
Aye.
Ms. Powers.
Aye.
Mr. Hagan.
Aye.
Ms. Sanchez Jones. Vice Mayor McGuire.
Aye.
And Mayor Cobb.
Aye, the motion is adopted. A communication from the City Attorney requesting that City Council convene in a closed meeting to consult with legal counsel regarding a specific legal matter requiring the provision of legal advice by the City Attorney regarding amendments to the zoning code and comprehensive plan pursuant to Section 2.2-3711A8 Code of Virginia as amended. I'll entertain a motion and second.
Move the resolution. Second.
Thank you, Council Members Volleson and Nash. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Nash.
Aye.
Mr. Volleson.
Aye.
Ms. Powers.
Aye.
Mr. Hagan.
Aye.
Ms. Sanchez Jones. Vice Mayor McGuire.
Aye.
And Mayor Cobb.
Aye, and the motion is adopted. A communication from the City Attorney requesting that City Council convene in a closed meeting for the purpose of discussing possible disposal of publicly owned property in the central part of the City of Roanoke, where discussion in an open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the public body pursuant to Section 2.2-3711A3 Code of Virginia as amended. I entertain a motion and second.
Moved. Second.
Thank you, Council Members Hagan and Nash. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Nash.
Aye.
Mr. Volleson.
Aye.
Ms. Powers.
Aye.
Mr. Hagan.
Aye.
Ms. Sanchez Jones. Vice Mayor McGuire.
Aye.
And Mayor Cobb.
Aye, and the motion is adopted. A communication from the City Attorney requesting that City Council convene in a closed meeting to consult with legal counsel regarding a certain legal matter, requiring the provision of legal advice by the City Attorney concerning a prospective business or industry or the expansion of an existing business or industry where no previous announcement has been made of the business or industry's interest in locating or expanding its facilities in the central part of the City of Roanoke, pursuant to Section 2.2-3711A5 Code of Virginia as amended. I'll entertain a motion and second.
So moved. Second.
Thank you, Councilmembers Volleson and Nash. And Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Nash.
Aye.
Mr. Volleson.
Aye.
Ms. Powers.
Aye.
Mr. Hagan.
Aye.
Ms. Sanchez Jones. Vice Mayor McGuire.
Aye.
And Mayor Cobb.
Aye, and the motion is adopted. And council should have a walk-on closed meeting request on the dais requesting that, this is from the City Attorney, requesting that council convene in a closed meeting to discuss or consider the acquisition of real property for a public purpose or of the disposition of publicly held real property where discussion in an open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the public body, pursuant to Section 2.2-3711A3 Code of Virginia as amended. I'll entertain a motion and second.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Councilmembers Hagan and Nash. And Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Nash.
Aye.
Mr. Volleson.
Aye.
Ms. Powers.
Aye.
Mr. Hagan.
Aye.
Ms. Sanchez Jones. Vice Mayor McGuire.
Aye.
And Mayor Cobb.
Aye, and the motion is adopted. Before we move into our legislative committee, I do want to recognize some guests that are with us this morning. We are delighted to welcome our new city interns that will be with us for the summer. I like that. Yes. And I'd love to invite our interns to please stand so that we can recognize them and celebrate their presence with us here this summer. Thank you all. Now you have to remain standing the rest of the meeting. So sorry. No, you can be seated. I do want to commend our HR department for their work with this program. Ms. White, I think you shared earlier that this is the 4th year in a row that we've been recognized as a top intern employer for the state of Virginia. And one of the HR staff, I believe Narik, will be going later in July to receive an award and to meet the governor and to celebrate that achievement. So thank you all very much. And Ms. Turner, I believe we have a new face on the front row. Would you like to introduce?
I would love to. I'd like to introduce our new Assistant City Manager, Mr. LeVar Humans. He comes to us with over 20 years of experience in local government, most recently serving as the county administrator for Hampton County, South Carolina. And today is his first day.
Welcome. We're glad to have you here. Thank you. All right, at this time, I'm going to recess the council meeting and turn it over to Vice Mayor McGuire, who will lead us through our legislative committee meeting.
Thank you, Mayor. Good morning, everyone. I'm going to call to order the June 1st meeting of the Roanoke City Legislative Committee, and I will ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Mr. Hagan.
Here.
Ms. Sanchez-Jones. Mayor Cobb.
Here.
Mr. Nash.
Here.
Mr. Volleson.
Here.
Ms. Powers.
Here.
Ms. Appel. Ms. Trigg. Chairman McGuire.
Here. Thank you. We are all here, have a quorum, and I will just a few quick opening remarks. We're going to hear today from Mr. Preston Bryant, our team with McGuire Woods. Preston, Mr. Bryant is going to give us an update on some of the state legislative items, and then we also have with us Mr. Clayton Cox and Mr. Scott Binkley, and we're going to get an update on the federal legislative side as well. Before we do that, I need a motion to approve the minutes from our last meeting.
So moved. Second.
Thank you, Council Members Hagan and Volleson, and I will ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Mr. Hagan.
Aye.
Ms. Sanchez-Jones. Mayor Cobb.
Aye.
Mr. Nash.
Aye.
Mr. Volleson.
Aye.
Ms. Powers. And Chairman McGuire.
Aye. Thank you very much. I will hand it over. Mr. Bryant, are you ready to go? Can you hear us?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I can hear you.
Okay, well, I will hand it over to you, and thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm happy to be with you again. As we know, the legislature is going in fits and starts these days, and so my presentation is an update on those fits and starts. If you could go to the next slide. I'll note that just to recap, the 60-day session ended in mid-March. There was the April 22 reconvened session, which I'll talk about. And then the April 23rd special session on the budget began because the legislature, as you well know, did not do the one thing that they have to do, and that is complete a budget. So just since I sent this PowerPoint in last week, the House is now scheduled to come back in session on Thursday, June 18, and the Senate will come back in session on Monday, June 22. So those are signs that we are inching toward a reconciled state budget. You'll note that by April 22nd, the reconvened session, the governor had vetoed 22 bills and amended 180. Now, I'll spend part of my time this morning talking about some of the vetoes, especially those vetoes that in some way, shape, or form impact or would have impacted local government, just so you'll have that context. Next slide. This is just a recap. You've seen this before of some of the successes your legislative program had during the 2026 General Assembly session. You'll notice a few things there are contingent on the budget. You have seen this slide before. Next slide. Mr. Chairman, here begins my explanations or my discussions, and I'll go through this pretty quickly. I've picked out 7 of the governor's vetoed bills that in some way, shape, or form, as I said, have a connection to local governments. Of course, we all know the bill to establish a cannabis retail market in Virginia. What I have done is I've brought excerpts out of the governor's veto message. She thought this was not quite ready, especially some of the timelines. Some of the retail shops would have been open by, I think, January 1 of 2027. She thought that was very quick in order to get all of the framework put together and the law enforcement and the reviews all put together, testing and inspection. She thought that was a very short time frame. The reason this affects local governments, as you may recall, while there was a 6% state sales tax on marijuana, there was also going to be a 1 to 3.5% local sales tax. So that would have been some revenue that that is now going to be perhaps delayed by another year. We'll see. And there were great pains, as you recall, to preserve a lot of the local government's zoning and other powers relative to where retail shops could go. The second one you'll see on the screen there, this bill would have prohibited certain federal civil immigration enforcement activities in certain areas of a courthouse, also within 40 feet of a polling place, for example. And it would have prohibited certain arrests to be taken, to be had in a courthouse with some exceptions. Obviously, this was geared toward ICE and their activities in local courthouses. The governor believed that as the bill was written, that there was some liability attached to both courthouse security personnel and perhaps for local law enforcement, where they could have been in a position of either violating state law or violating federal law. And she thought that would have been untenable, as you'll see that she sit there. So she had offered amendments. The legislature, I believe, had rejected those amendments. So she vetoed the bill. Next slide, and I'll go through these quickly, Mr. Chair. This bill would have required local departments of social services to always record a child welfare interview. Current law says it has some flexibility, two tracks when you record a child welfare interview and at times when you do not record a child welfare interview. This would have taken away that flexibility, and so the governor vetoed the bill. Next slide. This one you know well, Mr. Chair. This was about collective bargaining. The governor was very concerned about impacts on local governments. VML and VACO, as you know, were very engaged on this, raising concerns that local governments had. I think there were some 65 or 70 counties opposed to the bill as written. The governor had sought to let the state go first on collective bargaining, and then delay local government collective bargaining until 2030. She also sought to provide more flexibility to local governing bodies to ultimately make the decision on a negotiated contract, considering what impacts it may have had on budgets and processes at the time. So the governor was really trying to look out for local governments. The legislature rejected her proposed amendments. Actually, I don't even think they took them up. And then she vetoed the bill. We've all read a lot about that. Next slide. These are some local courthouse and regional jail matters. The first bill, 1392, if it simply said that if courthouse employees, if the sheriff allows courthouse employees to bypass the screening, then attorneys with business in the courthouse should also be allowed to bypass the screening. The governor did not see that as especially necessary. The second bill you see there would have required the chief judge of a local court to set a cell phone policy, but it also, that bill included the same language as 1392 relative to local attorneys being able to bypass the screening. And once again, the governor thought without additional study or a clear public safety benefit, she says she did not see the need for those bills. Next slide. This one is of special interest, perhaps. Fairfax County has been the proposed site of a casino for quite some time. The current process puts local governments squarely in charge of determining where a casino would go, if at all, and then holding a referendum. The Fairfax legislation would have taken away local control. The bill actually said where the casino would go. and it took away local control and powers relative to that. It would have been entirely precedent setting. It was very much a deviation from the local governing process when it comes to casinos. So the governor did not think that was right for local governments, and she vetoed the bill. That's the end of the veto explanations. I'll now go into, if you go to the next slide, there are two bills that we've not much talked about in the past, but are going to, now that they've been signed into law, are going to impact local governments. One is the Paid Family and Medical Leave Insurance Program. This is mandatory. It applies to the private sector and the public sector, to full-time and part-time employees. Virginia Employment Commission is going to develop and run this program, and you'll see certain milestone dates in there. And then they have to be, Roanoke City Council, Roanoke City will have to begin processing claims beginning December 1, 2028. So the rest of 2026 and 2027 is, and much of 2028 is the VEC setting up the program, and it's going to be a shared employer and employee cost allocation. But the basic benefit is 12 weeks maximum in a benefit year and 80% of the average weekly wage. And by October of each year, the Virginia Employment Commissioner will set the contribution rate. So you'll need to be factoring this obviously into your budgets in the years ahead. Second, there was passed paid sick leave. And this also applies to both the private and public sector. And it requires 1 hour paid sick leave for every 30 hours worked. And again, this is going to be a Virginia Employment Commission developed and administered program. It goes into effect a year from now, July 1, 2027. So be factoring that in as well in your budget planning. The next slide is simply a budget update. We know that there are two versions of the budget. The House version is House Bill 30. The Senate version is Senate Bill 30. There are many differences, but of course, as we've read, the main difference is in the Senate version, it has a provision to end the long-standing data center sales and use tax exemption, which is now valued at somewhere between $1.6 and $1.9 billion a year. That's $1.9 billion not coming into the Treasury. That's the main provision, the main difference holding up the House and Senate from reconciling their budget. There has been rumor in the last week or so that some of the governors vetoed bills, for example, the skill games bill, which also had a local government taxing component, the cannabis retail market bill. Some of those things, for example, could be put into the budget, and then the governor would get the budget late in the fiscal year, arguably July 29. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying arguably that could happen, which would give her virtually no time to amend the budget before the June 30 end of the fiscal year. We don't know if that will happen. That is a game that could be played. So we will see. Next slide. There are other items in the besides that one, besides the data center sales and use tax. I just pulled out a select few other items in the budget that still need to be reconciled, just so you see that there are some other kind of significant, weighty, tens of millions of dollars worth of other items to reconcile. You can just see a smattering there. There is some language on the I-81 corridor to accelerate certain projects. There's some House language to that effect, but there is no Senate language to that effect. So that's something of perhaps local interest. Next slide. Mr. Chairman, I'll defer to you. You've seen the remaining slides you've seen before, what I have done is, and these are bills relative to the legislative program that we pulled out and reported on before. What I did is simply updated these to say that the governor has signed certain of these into law, but that's the only change I've made. Mr. Chairman, in the interest of time, would you like me to go through some of these or defer to let you read and see these on your own?
In the interest of time, I appreciate it, but I think we have gotten the update on these a few times, and so I think we're familiar with it. It'll be available in the notes if anyone wants to go back and look at it, but no, thank you. I think you can, the update, just that they were signed is great. Thank you.
Yes, sir. I thought that might be the case. Thank you. So that there ends my presentation, Mr. Chair. Members of the committee, if there are questions, I'm happy to take them now or later.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Bryant. I really appreciate that. Before I open it up for questions, I forgot to say hello to our friend, Dr. Siebert, who's here and may jump in at some point on behalf of Ms. Appel and Trigg. Thank you. Do any of, before we move over to Mr. Cox and Mr. Binkley, do any council members have any questions or comments? Mr. Volleson?
Thank you, Mr. Bryant, for that presentation. I just had a question about SB 74 that passed and how that might be similar or dissimilar to HB 181 that we were trying to get through with Mr. Rasul. When I went and looked at that legislation, it looks very similar to what we were trying to do.
So HB 181, the Affordable Dwelling Unit Program bill, I'm trying to remember. Oh, yes. So the House did amend that. And you may remember that Delegate Rasul was doing all he could to prevent that bill from not passing. He was trying to keep it alive. And the Home Builders Association of Virginia was very active on this. They did not like continuing to add localities to the ADU program. They instead preferred a program that the city of Richmond had successfully done, employing the local economic development authority or the industrial development authority for affordable housing. And that was the approach that the House County Cities and Towns Committee was going to take. Delegate Rasul worked doubly hard to try to salvage this bill, and there was an enactment clause put on it requiring the Virginia Housing and Development Authority to study the program, and it would have required also to be passed again next year. So it is a possibility that the city of Roanoke could be added to the list of localities, but it was going to have to be after a study and after it's passed again next year. In the meantime, Mr. Volleson, I think we had talked about maybe I could set up with council a conference call or a virtual meeting with the Home Builders Association, and you could better understand their view of the program and why they favor an IDA approach. As we've talked before, you've mentioned, Mr. Volleson, that Roanoke is very different from Richmond, and it's not a one-size-fits-all type approach. But if there's interested in further engagement with the home builders, I could work with council to set that up at some point this summer.
I appreciate that, Mr. Preston. And there's also, when I was reading through our notes from last time, there's legislation called SB 74. I think it was Irene Shin's bill, that basically it makes the ADU program available to all localities and gives optional things that we can do to help with promoting that. So I don't want to put you on the spot here, but I just wanted to say, let's look into what that allows us or doesn't allow us to do, because it may have allowed us to do a lot of the things that we wanted to under House Bill 181.
Yes, remind me again of that other bill.
Senate Bill 74.
Okay, I will look at that. I don't recall it off the top of my head.
Yeah,
I will look at that.
I didn't even know about it until I was reading the legislative update.
Yeah, and I'll be back in touch with you, Mr. Volleson.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Great question, Mr. Volleson. Mr. Nash.
So for the housing study that Virginia Housing has to do, I guess my question is, what exactly are they going to study? Like, like what are they studying? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, that's a very good question. The way the language was written is they would be studying the efficacy of the program, how well ADU programs are working among those localities that have adopted it. If I remember correctly, there was at least one locality, and I can't remember which, that had been authorized to adopt an ADU ordinance, had indeed adopted the ADU ordinance, and then everything didn't go quite so smoothly. And I'm sorry to put that out there and not be able to recall more details, but that was part of the discussion, as I recall, during the session. So that lent a little bit more to the having the Virginia Housing Development Authority look at the ADU programs that have been authorized and the ordinances passed, and see how successful they have been or how they have gone. But what in particular they're going to study, I don't know.
That was a great question, Mr. Nash. And two things I'm making notes on. I would like to take you up, I think, on the offer to do a call with the home builders. I think that would be helpful for us to hear from them directly. And then if you could just also get back to us, I think on that example of where the ADU program did not go so well, that might be good for us to see just to the extent why that was brought up as a reason for pushback. But that was a great question. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Hagan.
Now, it's been a while since I've looked at the rules of the General Assembly in regards to the governor, but if they incorporate things that have been vetoed into the budget, can she veto the budget?
That's a very good question. So the governor has a line item veto.
Yeah.
There has been a lot of case law, Supreme Court case law over the years as to how the governor can veto a particular budget item and how the governor may not veto a particular budget item. The big cases go all the way back to George Allen's administration. There was one called the Landsidle case that kicked off, and then there have been several other cases since then, all centered on how the governor may veto certain budget items or parts of a budget item. There are creative ways that the budget conferees could weave in budget language to make it more difficult for a governor to veto an item, especially if they wove it in across several items. My understanding is all scenarios are being researched right now by the legislature and by the governor's office, and both are prepared for, or should be prepared for, whatever might happen. The governor has expressed that she thinks, legislating in the budget to this degree, and there's always been legislating through the budget, but on major policy items like this, legislating in the budget, especially in a late in the game, just before the fiscal year ends, play, would be, as she has said, an abuse of the process, her words. It is unknown whether the legislature will do that or not. If they, in any case, whether they do that or not, the legislature could send, again, they come back into session on the 18th and the 22nd, respectively, the House and the Senate. That does not suggest that they will send her a budget right then. They could theoretically send her a budget on June 29, one day before the fiscal year ends. That has never been done before, but it could happen if they wanted to try to box the governor in somehow.
I do love political brinksmanship. Thank you.
Any other questions from council? Comments? Well, thank you very much, Mr. Preston. I really appreciate the presentation, and thank you for all of your work. We didn't get everything that we were hoping for, but we did get make some progress in some key areas. So I really appreciate that and the update. And
Yes,
I
sir.
will turn it over to our federal friends, Mr. Cox and Mr. Binkley.
Good morning. Good to be with the committee, good to be with everyone here, and just want to first off say thank you for having us last month. We really enjoyed our time in Roanoke and getting to see everything around the city and meet with different department heads and other leadership of the city. So thank you all for being so hospitable and for your time and your insight. We really, really appreciated it. We'll start with our next slide. So I can advance it, but next slide, please. There we go. To kick it off, we want to kind of do three main things today. One, give you a legislative update on the big pieces of legislation that are floating around the Hill. Two, we've had some changes from when we last came about the congressional maps. I'm sure you're all aware, but just to put a finer point on that. And then I want to talk through where we are sort of going forward. Big piece of that is earmark updates, and then also wanted to talk through some other stuff we've been working on as far as some ideas we've got of better and more engaging our congressional delegation, and then some updates on the city of record process that we've done some research on and sent over. So to start with legislation, right now the House and Senate is getting back into session. They were on sort of a 2-week hiatus. Senate's back, House is back. The big thing that you will see in the news that they are working on is Reconciliation 2.0, which then leads into 3.0, but we'll get to that in a second. The main pieces of legislation, I think, that are really on the cusp of possibly passing or something moving outside of reconciliation are what's called the 21st Century Road to Housing Act. I believe we talked about that last time, but that is probably the biggest piece of housing legislation in a generation. It is relatively bipartisan. It passed the Senate and then passed the House just recently, but the House passed a slightly different version than the Senate. So if the Senate wants to see this legislation passed quickly, they'll either take up the House's version and vote again, or they will go into conference and send back some changes, and we'll sort of go back and forth here. But 21st Century Road to Housing is really a bill focused on setting sort of national standards for housing policy and really focusing on the supply side of housing and giving incentives to build more houses, to make localities less restrictive on housing and different types of housing that are built. And there's also really, I think, a kind of controversial provision in there, which the president and the administration supports, which essentially restricts investor-related purchasing of large swaths of housing for renting, and thus sort of putting a chokehold on supply in some communities and making more housing available. So the current House version has that provision in there, which restricts investor-related housing purchases. The second piece of legislation that's, I think, being focused on is the Farm Bill reauthorization. That has passed the House, now goes to the Senate. It's got some changes to the SNAP programs. It's got some other helpful programs for our farmers. The Farm Bill expires at the end of September, so there's sort of a rush to try and get that through. The major thing sort of taking up the oxygen in DC right now, as I said earlier, is reconciliation. That is how the administration and the majority in the House and the Senate, Republican leadership, are sort of choosing to fund some pieces of the government that did not make it into the last round of appropriations. So specifically pieces of Department of Homeland Security, ICE funding, Border Patrol funding. So there's what's called Reconciliation 2.0 bill that is being debated by the Senate, or being in also in the House. that is $72 billion. That is to fund ICE and to fund Border Patrol going forward for the next 3 years. It also includes a controversial provision of $1 billion for upgrades to the White House, primarily the White House ballroom, and some other Secret Service ask. That one is really, I think, a political football going back and forth. And so that is kind of slowing down Reconciliation 2.0. The president said that he wanted a bill on his desk by today to be signed. Obviously, that's not going to happen. So that sort of slows down everything else that happens in Congress right now, including the fiscal year 27 appropriations process. Outside of Reconciliation 2.0 is 3.0, which is sort of looking at another sort of grab bag bill that will be passed along a party line vote to go through the House and Senate. And that would essentially be similar to last year's bill that would take in all kinds of policy areas. I think things that the Republican majority are looking at are places like healthcare, looking at more tax cuts, other sort of social program reforms. Waste, fraud, and abuse is a big piece of their legislative agenda for this year. So really, I think Reconciliation 3.0 is about having something to run on for the midterms and having some messaging to talk about. 2.0 is about funding ICE and Border Patrol for the next 3 years, as well as getting the president's White House upgrades and ballroom upgrade paid for. But I think that could potentially drop out. As of right now, Reconciliation 2.0 has a pretty good shot at passing. 3.0, if 2.0 is hard to do, 3.0 is going to be very, very hard to do. So it could be unlikely, but we will continue to monitor that. Another big piece of legislation, this is another bill that expires at the end of September, is the Surface Transportation Bill, which is being called the Build America 250 Act. We finally got language out of the House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee within the last 2 weeks. That includes more money for sort of changing around of highway formula funds. It includes a fee on electric vehicles, since electric vehicles do not contribute to the highway trust fund via gas tax, since they don't use gas. So that is sort of a political football that is apparently dead on arrival in the Senate. So we'll see what happens with the Build America 250 Act, also known as the Surface Transportation Reauthorization Act. It is also the reauthorization of the bipartisan infrastructure law, which is sort of the centerpiece of President Biden's term, last administration, and was a lot of money for local governments, for a lot of infrastructure projects across the country. Finally, on the horizon for the rest of the calendar year, and again, they will adjourn early, probably before October due to the midterms, so folks can go back to their districts and campaigns, but is the fiscal year 27 appropriations process. And so that will be, the president sends out his budget. Obviously, there's been some concerns on his cuts across the board to domestic spending to pay for defense spending increases, but the House and the Senate really go about their own process. We're sort of waiting to hear from the House and Senate on their top line numbers. They basically make their way. There are 12 appropriations bills. They go sort of bill by bill in each subcommittee, and then they have the administration leadership that's in charge of enacting those funds in front of them to do oversight. Also look for Democrats that I think as they're thinking about potentially taking control in the next Congress, they will be sort of taking notes and looking at things to provide more oversight on. With that, on the legislative front, I will pass it over to my colleague Scott Binkley, who will talk about the changes in the congressional maps. We'll go to the next slide.
Thanks, Clayton. Great to be with you all. I think that was a really nice overview that Clayton provided on everything that's going on in DC right now. Of course, there's kind of just, to zoom out a little bit, we're really barreling down the tracks towards re-election. And so, come the end of summer of this year into August recess, I think, all of those things that Clayton mentioned, maybe outside of Reconciliation 3.0, will have had to happen if they're going to happen this year. So as far as timing goes, it'll be a busy summer and then a quiet August and a quiet fall heading into the political season, which is a good segue into your congressional maps. Of course, this is an update since we were last together. down in Roanoke, which was a lovely opportunity to come and visit and see all of the priority projects like Clayton mentioned. But the big update here is that there will be no update. Your congressional maps will remain the same. So your congressional delegation with Representative Klein will remain the same. And obviously your two senators will remain the same here going forward. So, I think that provides an opportunity for us to continue to build those relationships here in DC. And we'll be looking for ways to do that going forward. But, I think you guys probably heard all of the updates, whether it be in political advertisements or on the news. But the process here was obviously that, back in April, before we were together, the voters had just approved the ballot initiative to redraw the maps. Later, I think it was just a couple weeks after we were there visiting with you all, that the Supreme Court of Virginia struck down the maps, and then the Supreme Court of the United States denied or refused to take the case. So for now, like I said, your congressional maps will remain the same. There will be other opportunities like next legislative session to revisit this. I haven't heard any discussion of that here in DC, but obviously, there will be other opportunities to redraw the maps in the future, and so we'll be monitoring that, of course. I think the bottom line here is that we need to remain diligent in building those relationships with the congressional delegation, and Clayton and I have obviously great bipartisan relationships. Moving on to the next slide.
So here's where we are with our earmarks, which, if everybody remembers, came very fast this year. Normally are given some serious lead up time of a month or 2 months. This time around, it was basically had to have them in with 2 weeks. So we went with a lot of projects that were sort of already partially baked or that had been submitted last year in the instance of the In-River Kayak Park. So we went with these 5 earmarks: In-River Kayak Park, Amtrak Station Phase 1, Mill Mountain Greenway Bridge Phase 1 as well. These were very large ones, I would say, with the exception of the In-River Kayak Park, which was $3.5 million. We've not gotten an official sort of declination from our Senate offices, which is who participates in the earmark program. We've gotten a sort of general email that's been passed along to us that says one of your earmarks did not make it, but it doesn't say which one. So we are working on, they're very busy right now, but we're trying to get that information finalized, and we'll have that over to you. But as of right now, what we see on the sort of back end from going through each appropriations bill line by line, and sometimes they move things around or change the names, but as our best educated guess right now, we definitely see 2 earmarks in the THUD bill for the Roanoke Airport, the runway extension study, and the terminal building and improvements. So $10.5 million total, which is really great. That's a really outstanding amount of money. $8.5 million is huge. That is not something you regularly see. I mean, earmarks are typically, or congressional directed spending are typically $500,000 to $3 million or so. So these are very big, and I think a 40% success rate is objectively very strong. But we'll continue to put a finer point with our congressional partners on what happened with the other earmarks, any feedback, other things that will sort of lead into what we have planned for the summer, which we have talked to staff about, which I'll let Scott discuss, something we would love to do going forward that's been a sort of best practice for other communities that we work with.
Yeah, sure. And kind of picking up on the congressionally directed spending here, not sure. Can everybody hear that? Okay. So to pick the point up from Clayton on the congressionally directed spending, I think one thing that we can do that we have done, as Clayton mentioned in the past, is to utilize the time during August recess to host, a staff delegation to come and view some of these projects in person. And I think I've mentioned that a few times since we started working together, but I think things like the In-River Kayak Park are very cool to see in person, and you really kind of get a better sense of how that type of project will not only be a great thing for Roanoke, but the the surrounding community and even beyond to come and visit. And so, what we'd like to try to do is help arrange those staff delegations down to Roanoke in August from your 2 senators' offices and your representatives' offices. And I think that showing them 1 or 2 of those priority projects and maybe the airport as well, I think would be a tremendously valuable use of their time and ours. And so I think that would be a great way to socialize these projects and hope for additional success next year in the congressionally directed spending process. So just a thought there of ways that we can really highlight these going forward.
Yeah, thank you. I'll jump in with a quick question, either for Mr. Cox or Mr. Binkley. Do the other surrounding localities like Roanoke County, Botetourt County, are they also putting in, do you know if they're engaging in the CDS process, congressional directed spending requests? I wonder if folks know, because the reason I asked, sorry to cut in, but the 2 that did get funded are regional priorities. And so it occurs to me that whether other localities were involved in advocating or lobbying for that directly or not with the Senate offices, these are priorities that have been identified by, I think, all of the participating localities in the Roanoke Valley Allegheny Regional Commission. And so I guess what I'm just wondering is if they're also, I mean, I think 2 thoughts. 1, the benefit of working collaboratively and trying to put in requests that are harmonious with priorities of our other surrounding partners. But also, if everyone around us is also asking for those things, should we as well, or are we kind of like minimizing the chips that we have? If I'm just thinking out loud that in the future, we will work on being as coordinated as possible with our localities. I know that we are, but I'm just curious how they're engaging in this process. It occurred to me I wasn't sure.
I did not see anything for the county on at least the THUD with transportation, housing, and urban development. That's usually one that most counties and cities participate in. I did not see one in there for them, but I'll do a cursory check. I did see, I think there's a nonprofit in the city that received an earmark, but otherwise nothing around there, but I'll check.
Thank you. Mr. Vollison, you.
And I think that
on that, I actually,
one of the things,
we did talk to our regional partners like the county, Salem, and others about letters of support. And we did receive those from some of our regional partners, like the In River Kayak Park and the requests that we made specifically as a city. That was us trying for the first time to reach out and make sure that we get some support from our regional partners. Mm-hmm. And I do agree that most likely those are the Roanoke Airport ones are probably better suited that way because of the regional aspect of it. One thing that I learned in talking with Sandra Kane's office is that we have to look at what earmarks we have received previously. And so, like we just did the cutting of the ribbon on the ROVA Labs. There were earmarks in CDS earmarks for that and other things like that. So we kind of have to make sure we're, tracking those things better in the future.
Thank you, Mr. Vollison. I think that's really helpful feedback. Good comment. Mr. Cox or Mr. Binkley, did you have anything else to say? I'm sorry I jumped in there. We kind of went off on a conversation, but I'll turn it back over to you.
Yeah, I was just going to raise the letters of support that we did at least I know we solicited them, and it sounds like we did receive them, because that's always something that obviously is a great demonstration of regional support. And I think as you're looking at this list, what is clear is that, maybe sight unseen, these 2 that will be funded on paper look to carry the most regional applicability. And so the line that they always use when making these decisions is the greatest good for the district. And so, if you're looking at, how to spend this same amount of money, I think they're looking at it and say, well, these would obviously benefit the entire region. And I think that with the socialization and with continued efforts of coordination with other local governments in your region, we can get even better at that and make sure that, you know, we're doing everything we can to demonstrate that local kind of community-led support. But I think the letters of support was a good start, and we can kind of build on that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I'd definitely be interested in seeing if any of our neighboring localities are submitting requests, what they're submitting, and continuing to Mr. Vollison's point to be really coordinated moving forward. So thank you for that. Any other questions or comments on this, Mr. Nash?
Question. With the Build America 250, or I forgot the prior name of it that you mentioned, but you said that was infrastructure and roads, and I was curious, how does that pertain to rail with our Amtrak station that we're trying to work on? If there's anything mentioned about rail in that build program.
It's a good question. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes.
So it actually does include the Railway Safety Act, which I believe carries not just some regulations, but some funding for railroad as well. But let me pull the exact numbers, and we can follow up with that information as to what the exact rail piece is there, if Clayton, unless you have that on the top of your head.
No, there will definitely be money for like railway safety. Typically, there's like it's called the CRISI program. Don't ask me what it stands for, but a lot of it is rail crossings at grade street level, and sort of making those things safer. That was a big focal point of the Biden administration. And so a lot of these programs weren't continued in the same size, but there will be funding for it. And so we can certainly look into that.
And that it actually jogged my memory as to one thing I was going to mention about the congressionally directed spending requests is at this point, when, you know, we get a good indication of whether or not these priority projects will be funded through that process or not, we can then start going towards looking at other avenues of federal funding. So, you know, through this service transportation reauthorization or just other competitive grant programs, we can look at other, you know, ways to fund at least pieces of some of these projects. And I think the reauthorization will be helpful in that. And then we can go back to questions. I did have one more thing that I was going to mention. There was one additional update related to the Norfolk Southern Union Pacific merger. Late last week, the Surface Transportation Board accepted their application, which is really just the first step in, as you know, a long process to complete this merger. And when in the acceptance, the Surface Transportation Board did request some pretty substantive additional information. So this will be a long process, but as we discussed at the last meeting, I know that there's interest in becoming a party of record, and we have sent details to the team detailing how you would go through the process to file the notice of intent to participate to become a party of record. And so if you guys have any questions, if there are any questions related to that, happy to address that as well.
Thank you, Mr. Binkley. Were there any questions about the merger, the railroad merger?
I don't think so. I think right now we're in the process of getting the letter sent out. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I guess everybody that is a party to that is already a party has to be notified as well. So we're working on how to get that notification in, and of course to all those, there's already 500 and some different parties on this. So it's a bit of a task.
A headache. Thank you for those working on it. Anything else? Oh, one other plug. I don't think we have time to talk about it today, but just to keep on your radar, our interest in becoming a gateway community, National Parks Gateway community. We can talk about that maybe at another time. If there's nothing else on the legislative updates, I was going to do a quick just admin kind of housekeeping next meeting business update, but I don't want to cut that off. Any other questions? Did you have anything else for us, Mr. Binkley, Mr. Cox? Okay.
Not today. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate the update. We are glad you could be with us today. Our next meeting for the Roanoke City Legislative Committee is scheduled for Monday, July 6th. I'm going to assume that will be 9 a.m. as standard. That's going to be a busy day for us. What I wanted to also throw out, and I appreciate Councilman Volleson talking through this with me over the weekend, trying to get our ducks in a row with our timing, was getting our legislative agenda for next year, our state legislative agenda for next year finalized. And so our target for that is to have our city legislative agenda finalized by August of this year, obviously, so in a couple of months. And what we would like to do, and I guess a question is how to go about this, we would like to do a public hearing. So put out the call today that we have already received a lot of feedback from residents and constituents and business owners, but wanted to formally put that call out there for if there's remaining feedback, and then hold a public hearing at the July 20th City Council meeting at the 7 p.m. Did I get that right, Mr. Volleson?
I don't know about the date, but is that the right?
I think it's the 20th would be the second meeting.
Sure.
Yeah, sounds
I know
right.
the first one's the 6th.
Yeah, and so that one is a no-go.
Yeah. So yeah, at the 7 p.m. to just take public comment about the legislative agenda, I think would be good.
We need to make do we need to vote on that to schedule that, or we can?
That would be best, just because you guys approve public hearings, so yes.
Make a motion to have a public hearing about the state legislative agenda on July 20th at 7 p.m.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on a public hearing to receive feedback from the public on our state legislative agenda at the July 20th meeting at 7 p.m. And I'll ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Excuse me, Mr. Hagan. Aye. Ms. Sanchez-Jones. Mayor Cobb.
Aye.
Mr. Nash.
Aye.
Mr. Volleson.
Aye.
Ms. Powers.
Aye.
And Chairman McGuire.
Aye. And the ayes have it. Thank you very much, everyone. And so we look forward to that opportunity on the 20th, and I'm glad to start. Yes, ma'am, Ms. Carini.
Sorry, whenever you have a moment, just I wanted to quickly add in, I sent that memo to all of you in May about all of our legislative changes. I tried my best to kind of outline the things that definitely have to happen this year, and then all the things that it's up to you, whether you would like to make changes. For the things that definitely have to happen July 1st, none of them require code amendments except zoning code amendments, which of course we are already going through a text amendment process right now. Of course, the state code overrules, so even though the zoning code will not be changed July 1st, the state code will control. But of course, at some point, when planning is able, they will make those changes in their next zoning text amendments. All the other things are just things that we have to do under the law. But then you all will want to review the other list, which is very long, about what you would like to change and make those priorities, and then work with the city manager and my office to make any changes necessary.
Thank you, Ms. Carini. I really appreciate that reminder, and encourage everyone, if you haven't checked that out, to please review that document. It's really helpful. And to our citizens or residents that are interested in participating in this process, I would encourage everyone to look at the legislative agenda from last year. A lot of items did pass, and so we now have the opportunity at the city level to take advantage of some of those new authorities. So the legislative agenda will be different next year. Some items will come out, some new items can go in, but that's a really informative document of just what passed and what we now are able to do. So thank you again, Ms. Carini, for that. If there are no other questions or comments from anyone, I will move to adjourn the meeting. Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. And I will reconvene our city council meeting. We have two quick items before two briefings. First of all, are there any items listed on the 2:00 p.m. docket requiring further clarification or discussion, or any addition or deletions? And then secondly, any topics for discussion by members of council? And we will move directly into our briefings, and I will invite our city attorney, Ms. Carini, to introduce both the briefings. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. The first briefing on the Towing Advisory Board will be done by Captain Ashby.
Morning, Mr. Mayor.
Morning.
Vice Mayor, members of council. We're coming before you today with a minor change to the city ordinance on the Towing Advisory Board. The Towing Advisory Board is made to advise council on ordinances, contracts, and agreements related to our towing services. Current ordinance lays out the number of members on the Towing Advisory Board: 3 law enforcement members, 3 members of the towing community, and 1 citizen at large. There will be a change to and that largely mirrors the state statute. There will be a change to the state statute coming July 1st, which requires equal representation across all 3 sections there. So what we would be changing on the ordinance is just making it 3 members of law enforcement, 3 members of the towing community, and 3 at-large members. Like I said, we have 1 at-large community member now. We would be changing that to 3 members with this new ordinance.
Great, thank you. That was quick and simple.
Very quick and easy.
An effect of the change in the state code. So any questions?
And this will come to your, for your action on the next meeting, June 15th.
Thank you.
And our second briefing is about the Youth Services Citizen Board, and David Collins from my office will give you the equally short briefing.
Good morning, Mayor Cobb, Vice
Morning.
Mayor McGuire, members of council, and Ms. Turner. We are proposing that the Youth Services Citizen Advisory Board ordinance be amended to reduce the current number of members from 17 to 10 in the interest of efficiency and getting people to serve on the board. The Youth Services Advisory Board is charged with advising localities on programs and services that benefit youth. The current makeup, as I mentioned, is 17. We are proposing that it be reduced to 10. Of those 10, 1 member would be a non-voting member of City Council. 7 members would be comprised from persons with agencies representing youth, and there would be 2 high school students from each of the city's high schools. If approved, this would be presented to council for adoption on the June 15th agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Collins. Appreciate your work on this. Questions or comments from members of council? All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
We appreciate your time today. All right, that concludes our business for this morning's session, so we will be in recess until 2:00 p.m. for our series of closed meetings in the council's conference room. Thank you all for coming.